A warm welcome to this year's presidential evening debate. We're live streaming this debate, so I would like to thank our viewers for joining us, and I also want to encourage you to pose questions to the candidates if you have any, and we'll see if we can integrate them in some way. Like last year, when 8 candidates were running, we're having this extra debate as a complement to the lunch debate that is taking place tomorrow in here in the aula at 12 o'clock. The structure of this debate is based on 4 questions concerning the following topics: sustainability, involvement, student health, and team management. I'm going to pose one of the questions to a specific candidate, and after that I will let other candidates fill in. But let's start off with some warm-up questions. So, Vilma Livendal, if Strannis was to start a fund in your name, what kind of fund would you want it to be?
Please grab a mic. No, one of those on the field.
Can you hear me now? Yes. So if Strannis were to start a fund in my name, I think I would want it to be an initiative fund for all students to be able to come with new initiatives and new thoughts for cool and new project ideas. Just make sure that everyone can get their will into the organization.
Okay, thank you. Vilma Svensson, if you were to add a drink to the menu in the Rotunda, what kind of drink would it be and what would you call it?
I'm supposed to make one up?
Yes, okay. I mean you can, blend in whatever you want, but it's supposed to be a drink and not plain vodka, for example.
Okay.
And no Kong Strong, please.
No Kong Strong. I definitely think I would add a Shirley Temple. When I was small, that was my absolute favorite drink, and I think that it's kind of something fun or new. It's pink and cute.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Shirley Temple. I haven't made that up.
Ved, if you were able to add something to Lidl's assortment, what would it be?
I think Lidl needs to up their supermarket sandwich game. Something I always liked about England was supermarket sandwiches, and in Sweden they're either very expensive or the cheap one selection is very limited, so more smörgåsar.
Thank you for that answer. Magda, if Kolmården donated an elephant to you, what would you do with it?
Oh, well, this is a weird question. Didn't they do this like the king? Doesn't he have an elephant?
Perhaps, I don't know.
Well, I don't think that an elephant should be around the school or anywhere here, so I would probably realistically send it back to
the
wherever
retail
it came
building.
from. What?
To the retail building.
No, I'd probably send it back to wherever it came from because I don't think
the kindergarten.
belong
Okay.
here. Sure.
Nice. And I guess continuing on the animal theme, Lilia, if you were, if your vice president and your treasurer were animals, what kind of animals would they be and why?
I think I would like my vice president to be a lion. Needs to be a bit fierce. And I would like my treasurer to be a dolphin, because I like dolphins. I don't know.
And what about you? Like, what animal would you be?
Maybe I should have put the lion on me. I don't know. I should have chosen the lion. But koala, maybe.
Koala.
I don't know why.
Okay. Cool.
I have
Sleepy,
no answer, but
or
I kind of am sleepy all the time, to be honest. Yes.
Okay. Cool. Let's move on to the more serious questions that we know a lot of SASE members are curious about hearing the answer to. So last year, SSE was ranked the lowest of Swedish higher education institutes in terms of sustainability. What will you do to ensure that our score increases in the coming years? And this first question will go to Magda.
So first of all, I decided to go in and read this report because it was linked to us. And although the score is completely unacceptable, I do also want to point out that this is a ranking of SSE and not SASE specifically. That doesn't mean that it concerns us any less, but that also means that we know a little bit of where to go. So when I looked into this report, I saw that it had to do with SSE not lacking measurements of how to measure sustainability and lacking a plan of how they were going to go on in the future, basically. So what I think that we should do is increase the conversation with the school to start off. And I would encourage all of the initiatives that we have within sustainability to join us in this, because I think they have some great ideas. And I also think it's important to also practice what you preach. I think it'd be very naive of us to ask the school to do something and not do it ourselves. So I would like to incorporate this in our operational work as well, meaning that I want us to set some goals for our sustainability and also measure what we do. So I think sustainability accounting would be a great way for us to start showing what we do as an organization, and also thus try to incentivize the same thing at the school.
Okay. Do you have a concrete example of what kind of goal that could be like when it comes to sustainability?
Well, for instance, I think that it's interesting with how much we recycle every year. I know that we have everywhere, for example, in the atrium, we have different assortment of trash. We try to recycle, panta, all of those things, but we often don't, like we have no idea how much we actually do, or for instance, how much paper we use at the school, or how much energy. So all of those things were things that we could actually start measuring, and maybe make sure that I know we complain a lot about the lighting in the atrium being terrible, but there might perhaps be other ways we could save energy that we don't think about, since we don't have any measurements of it.
Okay, thank you. Ved, would you like to elaborate on that answer?
So I also looked at the report, and I saw that 50% of the score is based on aviation emissions. And we, like all the other universities, got the highest score for the total aviation reduction, meaning that all the universities in the study are on track in that regard. We got a 72% on workforce aviation emissions, despite the fact that we have a massively international faculty. But then again, we were very poor in total emissions and plans and goals. And like Magda said, long-term planning and goals are very key. That's what's lacking from our sustainable vision. And if we were to try and get a higher score specifically on the Klimatstuderna score, we can see they even provided the questions they asked, like, is there an emission target for X, quantifiable and time-bound? Is there an action plan? Do employees have clear ownership? And do we follow up on work to the target? So the scores that we scored poorly on, they weren't statistical, but more of like a questionnaire. So if we really want to focus on just this score, we could answer all the questions. But otherwise, there are long-term goals that we need to define within SASE and speak to the school about.
Okay, thank you. And next in turn is Lilia. Would you like to add something?
I just think we should, obviously I thought also about the operational plans and that we should include sustainability in it. But I also thought about the sustainability initiatives that we have in SASE, that we should also include them in the operational plans, and that I think it's important to provide them with the resources and the guidance that they need, because they're a pretty important part of SASE and achieving those operational goals. So, yeah.
Okay. Vilma L.
Yes. So I agree with what you all have said. I think that the dialogue with the school is extremely important in this. And it's also super important to come with solutions to the school and not only hand them a problem that we then expect them to solve. So I think that it's good to talk to the people who are very involved in this sort of questions. For example, having workshops with SASE Sustainability Group and seeing what sort of solutions we can come up with together and then bring to the school. It's also important to acknowledge that this is not a precedent or a problem for the president alone to tackle. And I think that a good way would be to involve the whole presidium, so the vice president and the treasurer as well. As Magda said, some sustainability reporting could be improved that way, and also working on having sustainability incorporated into all of the independent projects that the vice president is the leader of.
And finally, Vilma Svensson.
Yeah, I basically have two main points to add. I think that the first one is that we should really try to come with, like, as Vilma said, solutions to the school, but also that we should work together with them, because I feel that this poor result is not only a reflection on SSE, it is 100% a reflection on SASE. since we use their premises, we also use their recycling systems. Everything that SSE does is also something that SASSE does. And putting the problem on SSE is not fair, in my opinion. So that's number one, to really try to work together with the school to set up goals and different initiatives that we can conclude to develop this, basically. And the second part is that I also feel like we should incorporate sustainability more into the different committees that we have. It shouldn't just be, for example, SSG that focuses on sustainability. We should see a more developed plan throughout SASSE and not only within one committee, for example, or one independent project.
Okay, thank you very much. And we'll move on to the next question. But before that, do we have any questions in the chat? No, not yet. The next question is as follows. How will you involve more master students in SASSE? And this second question goes firstly to Lilia.
Yes, so I've actually had many conversations with some master students, and the number one problem that they've talked about constantly is the fact that the length of the role commitments are pretty long, which is 1 year. I mean, bachelor students actually have the time to put in SASSE compared to them. So master students are not afforded the same privilege because of the length of their degree. So they probably have less time to spend on SASSE in general. And introducing more positions maybe with a shorter length of commitment or reducing the length of existing ones would therefore potentially encourage them to apply to more roles. And of course, we need to direct the marketing towards the master students much more than we already do and use our communication channels in a better way. Because this comes back to the second issue, which is they also feel that they can only access SASSE through the Masters Club. And, you know, we need to be better at reaching out to them and making sure that they are conscious of the fact that their thoughts are being considered, their opinions are being considered, and that we actually implement them in accordance with their thoughts and opinions. So we could also do something like introducing master representatives in each committee, maybe. Maybe as a complement, not as a full-time role in the committee, but just as a complement so that they can voice the opinions of the master students and their thoughts, in case they have any, of course.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll see if Vilma Svensson has something to elaborate on that answer.
Yeah, so Lilia, you touched upon it, that I think that one of the problems is that master students might not have the time or the ability to get involved, because they have a lot of other stuff going on. But I also think one of the things with events, for example, is that we, at the moment, in my opinion, have a culture that some events are intended for bachelor students and others are intended for master students, for example. And I think that one super simple way to really try to get everyone engaged in the same form of association is to ensure that everyone feels that they're welcome to come to all events. And it's just a super simple thing of ensuring that that's communicated, that in all of our marketing that we do for events, to really push for that you are both welcome, masters and bachelor students. So that we have great events for example, I was at the Neon Nights last weekend, which was super fun, having master and bachelor events together.
Okay, great. Magda,
No, so I agree with everything that has been touched upon previously, that they probably don't have the time, and I wrote that in my election promises as well, that I would like to encourage more half-year positions and more abilities that don't require as much commitment. But something that I also thought about that I don't think is currently touched upon enough is the master introduction. Because I remember when I started my bachelor's program, the thing that really, entire week of the introduction was what got me into SASSE and what made me want to get involved. So I feel like right now, as it is, I feel like the master's intro might be lacking a little bit of an entryway into SASSE. It's more about an introduction to SSE, welcome to the master's program, rather than look at SASSE and all we have for you, which also, which has already been said, is that they usually feel like they don't have many places to go within SASSE. So that is something that I would definitely like to change. And I think that it might also be rooted a little bit, as we've talked about, that one of the challenges that we face right now is that our bachelor programs are becoming more international. And we think that it's hard to incorporate this into SASE, and that's something everyone's working with currently. But what we forget is that master's programs have been international for years, and this hasn't really been adapted for. So I also feel like as we start realizing that our school is international and we need to incorporate this into our operations, hopefully, I believe that master students will want to get involved more as well.
Right. Vilmael?
Yes, so as before, I agree with what you've all said. It's good to have projects that are a bit shorter in time so that master students actually can get involved. But I also believe that today, most of the perspectives of the sort of events that we, when we get viewpoints from the students come from our bachelor students. And I think that we need to get the master's viewpoint much more. So this can be done both through talking mouth to mouth with the master students, but of course also to talk with the Master Club representative. I know that Master Club is the main way in for the master students today, but through a great collaboration with Master Club, with the project leader of Master Club and SASE, I think that we can get what the masters want and show that through the organization. I also want to bring back a thing that Arian, a previous president, did during his time as president, which was a How to SASE lecture. And that's both perfectly for both the new bachelor students, but also for all the master students, where they can learn about all the different projects, the different roles they actually can get involved in, because I think that the communication flow today is what needs to be improved, and that most of the students in the masters don't really know what sort of projects they can get involved in.
Are you referring to what's called the core competence lectures, or?
Yes, a bit. It's basically the same, but what Arian did was that he actually held a lecture, so everyone could come in and listen to all the different projects there was. In core competence, it's more about how the core actually works, not about all the independent projects. And I want to get out information about all the specific projects, about the banquets and stuff as well, so that people actually feel more involved in SASE.
Okay, great. And Ved, finally.
When you get to the end, you run out of good ideas. I agree with all of you. But to tie it all up, yes, master students, they're in a different phase of their life. They're in an intense 2-year project, perhaps transitioning a bit away from academics and into a professional life. So by implementing their wants and needs into SASE, by targeting them and making them feel included, by offering them things that they might actually be interested in. For example, the kayaking events and business committee events are quite popular with master students. Things that are more relevant to their professional careers, like spending the day in the life of a company, and reflect things that they're actually going to be doing in just a short period of time. So yes, shorter positions, more communication, and inclusivity.
Okay, great. Thank you. The third question is as follows. How will you work towards an improved student health at SSE? What do you believe can be done? And, well, you're holding the mic, so you can just start. Yes?
Okay. So yes, student health. It's very important for us to build the SASE community. It's difficult in a non-campus city center school, and therefore even more important. So let's open source mental health. Let's get talking, seek out those who look sad and say hi. Formal counseling is important, and resources do exist at the school. But what we need is family and taking an interest in others. So it would be hard to change the whole culture. Sweden, I've realized in my time here, is a very individualistic society. But by making a big family, like Dom Toretto said, that would be good. But yes, we do have the resources, and I know funding is a thing we've talked about. I know we have Mindler, the digital resource. There's also a Swedish word for a counselor offered by SU that our school pays about 500,000 crowns for a year, but most people don't use. So again, it becomes a communication thing. We have the stuff, we need to communicate. And also, final thing, mental health is a thing that's also can be tied back to sustainability. Mental health sustainability is very important. And thinking about it in our strategy and considering it at all times will be important for the operational plan and future goals.
Do you have any concrete examples of ways to improve communication when it comes to, for example, Mindler? Because as in my experience, I think SASE has done a quite good job of communicating that service that SASE is offering. Do you have any suggestions for any other ways?
That's what personally I've been fortunate not to struggle and look for these resources, so I don't have first-hand experience, but no concrete examples. I'll figure out if I'm elected. I'll have a lot of time to research and learn more about the position, but can't think of one off of the top of my head right now.
I see. Vilma Livendal, would you like to continue?
Yes. So I think that there are a lot of different actions that can be taken to improve student health at SSE. And I mentioned some of them in my election promises as well. But I think that the constant dialogue with the school regarding students' stress levels is super important. And that way we can actively work with getting the students' perspectives into the education at SSE as well. I also think that a proactive work with SASA Health Group is super important. They run many great initiatives that you've talked about, and I, as Ved, think that they aren't communicated enough. I think that they have an Instagram, which isn't really, that's not the Instagram that students actively look for if they're not feeling the stress. And I think that we need to promote it better through SASA's own sites and also through other committees' Instagrams where students are constantly. And I think that right now we have a very good focus on treating student stress when it's already happened, but not as much on preventing this very stress from actually happening from the beginning. And I think that these preventative measures are equally as important as the treatment measures. And this is something that I really want to see improved with our work towards better student health. And one concrete example of this is to have clearer time requirement for the different projects within SASE and all the projects that the students can engage in. And that way, the students will know the workload from the beginning, and they won't get surprised about it when it's happening. Of course, there are multiple other ways of preventing stress, but I don't think that I'm the best person to answer these questions. I think that we need to have a conversation with the students about what they think and what measures they want to be taken.
And Vilma S.
Yeah, so here I have 3 points, I think. The first one for me is that we have great initiatives as it is right now with SASA Health Group, for example. And I think I would really want to continue to improve this work, and as everybody's touched upon, the communication of the work that they're doing to really drive this message out to students. The second point is that I know that the current SASA board is going on a trip that's going to take place now towards the end of their year, where they are going to benchmark for, what's it called? I lost the word. Health, well-being, student health, and so on. And to really, I think what I would want to work with next year is to really work to improve the findings that they find and to continue to drive this change so that that trip is useful for our year to come. And thirdly, I also feel that I really want to continue to push for what previous SASA boards have worked for with what's called the professional playground. I personally really feel that SASA should be a place where students can relax a bit, get to be part of projects that aren't 100% serious all the time. I feel like we have so many things with studying and searching for internships and working. There's so much serious stuff going on around us all the time. And I feel that SASA should be a place where we can really use these skills, but in a fun way to learn and develop, which is what SASA should be for me, or personally, I feel this. So just to continue to drive this forward in the future, I feel are 3 main points that I would work with.
Thank you. Magda?
So although most points have already been touched upon, and I agree with them all, the main thing that I really want to push as well is that although I love all the initiatives that we've created, SASA Health Group is doing a great job, I don't think it's fair to push the mental health of 2,000 stressed students over on a project group of like 4 people. It's not realistic to think that these few people with a few resources are supposed to be able to not only handle stress once it has occurred, but also work proactively, as Wilma said. So I think that what we need to do is really push this with the school and say that, yeah, no, it's not enough that we have a counselor once people are already stressed. We need to actually take care of people during the times where there isn't as much in school and when it's supposed to be chill. Because right now, people don't even feel like they can chill during the times that they should. Like now in the beginning of periods, we still see a bunch of students in school at weekends simply because they're stressed of missing anything out. So I think that what we really need to do is work proactively and also make sure that the school actually sees the problem. Because all they see right now is that, well, SAS is doing a great job. Like they're handling the student health. We have Mindler, which are all great things. But I don't think it's fair to say that us students who are also stressed, I think most of us, I don't think any of us students haven't felt a sense of stress, but that we really need to hold this accountable and work with the school.
Do you have any examples of measures you're talking about that the SSE perhaps doesn't do too much for promoting well-being or chilling out when we're supposed to? Is there anything they could do to prevent stressing out during periods they shouldn't?
Yeah.
Or is it more of a culture thing? Because that's much harder to
Yeah, no, I definitely think that it is deep-rooted in SSE's culture, that we're supposed to be stressed, we're supposed to work really, really hard, which is good, we're all ambitious students, but some things that I've noticed, for instance, I was in a seminar only like a week ago, and our teacher actually asked all of us, pretty much individually, but how are you? Are you doing okay? Are you stressed? And then we actually took a minute to just sit quietly, close our eyes, and relax in order to not only improve focus, but also just let everything stressful go for a little bit. So I feel like those small things that don't take a lot of time, that can take 5 minutes during class, can make such a big difference and make the students feel heard. Because yes, we are really ambitious individuals, and we are here to learn, and we like having a lot of our plates. But it isn't realistic that we're supposed to think that on a Saturday evening at 7, we can't take a day off because we're stressed.
Thank you for that answer. And Lilia, finally.
Yes, I agree with what everyone said, and I wanted to touch upon 3 things. One way in which we could increase communication is the introduction weeks. I mean, they're very important. The students always receive a lot of information during the introduction weeks, but I think, from my experience, I don't know how it was with your introduction, but I don't remember being introduced to things like the different health-related facilities that we have at SSE, or at SASE, sorry. And if every committee kind of just mentions it, repetition leaves a mark, and if they're aware of the fact that we have those facilities, then maybe they will use them. To be honest, I wasn't aware of the Mindler app and that it existed. I don't know why I didn't get any information on that. Maybe I wasn't looking. But yeah, just to raise awareness on that. One other thing I noticed is that when I was looking at the Mindler app, you kind of need a bank ID to be able to use it. That it kind of excludes some students, because not all students at SSE have bank ID. So there we touch upon the problem of not including people. I mean, you want to promote well-being, yet you're excluding some, so it's kind of contradictory. And I know that it probably wasn't intended, but it's something we can think about. And lastly, we need to think about the fact that not all people can talk to a psychologist. You can't receive help. Like, for example, personally, I wouldn't go and talk to a psychologist. I cope by talking to my friends or maybe going to social events. So we need to take into account that people work in different ways. It's very personal and individual, and we should make sure that, as Sas said, that we have everything available for them from that front.
Thank you.
Yes.
And before we move on to the next question, perhaps we have a comment here. I could actually throw this question to all of you guys, and we'll see who wants to pick up on it. I guess you can raise hands. Will the Presidium ever nudge the business committee to have as many English-speaking opportunities as there are Swedish? Thank you very much. I guess the person is referring to perhaps the emails the business committee is sending out and all the Swedish versus English opportunities. Magda?
No, as I've already said, I think that this is an issue that we're actually a little bit late on. We shouldn't have this problem now that there are international students at our school, especially in the bachelor programs. We've had international students for years, but now the numbers have increased a lot. So thinking about this now is technically already too late. But I think that I think it's very important to have that conversation with the business committee and make sure that everyone feels included, because most international students, or at least some of them that come here to study, also want to work here. So finding only Swedish mails in your mailbox, I can believe, isn't fun and isn't giving in any way. So I definitely think that that's something to consider, and I'm really happy that this person, whoever asked the question, brought this up, because I think it's really, really good to hear people's views on things and maybe some details that people who are Swedish speaking don't think about. So I think it's really good, and I think that it's also important that we take these times to listen to what the students have to say, because that's really when the Presidium will learn the most.
Okay. Would anyone like to add something to that answer? Or else we'll see if we have another one. A student that gets a role in the first SASE recruitment is more likely to get a role in future recruitment. How can this excluding cycle be broken?
Can I answer?
Yeah, sure.
So I think that this is very true. And what I would like to change is to make sure that during the beginning of the fall recruitment, that not one person can get multiple roles. I think that there are way too many people that have multiple roles in plenty of different committees, and that should be fine further on. But during the beginning of the fall recruitment, when new students come in, I think that it's very important that all students get the possibility to at least see SASE and see the different projects, to be able to get an opportunity to involve themselves in SASE even more in the future. That's something that I believe in.
Yes, Magda?
Something real quick, because I agree with everything that you said, and with that too, I think that there's so much pressure put on the fall recruitment as it is. I didn't apply for a single thing during fall recruitment because I was too overwhelmed. Like, I just saw a bunch of positions and you got messages everywhere, just apply, 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 apply for everything, regret nothing. But it made me almost scared, and because I didn't understand SASE. So like you said previously, I didn't understand any of the projects. I just heard a bunch of role descriptions, and then I was expected to think that, oh yeah, I could be head of event or head of communication in this without knowing anything about it. So I think something that we also need to improve is the actual communication for the fall recruitment, and not put as much pressure on it, because it is supposed to be fun and not something that people get scared of and back out from, because SASE is, you know, a fun place to be once you understand it.
Thank you very much. Vilma?
I also really think that it's important to press upon that it shouldn't be that you have gone to one interview and then you don't get the role, and then you go to the next interview and people think that these people who are interviewing you now know that you didn't get the role last time. It's like in every new interview session, there should be a clean slate for everyone. And I think it's super important that this like culture of that you should only recruit people who've done projects before, for example, and so on. I think this culture needs to be broken, because we're a school of so many incredibly talented students. And for me, it's impossible to see that only a certain number of people are capable of having the roles within the association, which it is today. So really, I want to press upon that as well.
Thank you. Yes, so we'll move on to the last of the four main questions, and it's as follows. One of the most important tasks as the president is to ensure that the SASE board functions well as a group. How will you work with this? And Vilma Livendal, would you like to start?
Yes, thank you. I've been a leader in many different group settings, both big and small. For example, I've been the team captain of the Swedish national team in cheerleading. I've also been a cheerleading coach for several years, and I'm right now the team captain of the IDE board. And I think that all of these different group settings give me great experience and perfect knowledge to know how to make the SASE board function well as a group as well. What I've realized is that the most important thing is to listen. You have to make sure that you know that everyone's individual goals are fulfilled and how they want to achieve their goals. It's also important to trust the different members of the group, in this case the board members, and let them get the opportunity to evolve and do their own things. In the end, a lot comes down to just being a support pillar for the team and carrying them through all the different activities. And I think that these things, in combination with different team building activities and just trying to stay positive, are things that I really believe in and things that I would focus on to make sure that the SASE board functions well as a group.
Vilma Svensson?
Yeah, so I'm a person who loves to spend a lot of time with a lot of different groups of people. And personally, I think that this is something that's super important when, for example, leading the SASE board, because we will be a group of very different individuals. And I think that also one thing that's important to remember is that there will be conflicts, there will be people who have different opinions about things and so on. And what I've learned from being a leader in different situations is that it's these conflicts, depending of course on how you handle them, that lead to development and to drive change. So personally, I really feel that it's important to ensure that we drive these conflicts that we have and drive them into something good instead of seeing them as a problem.
Okay, thank you. Ved?
Yeah, so my previous leadership experience has been on the Indian high school equivalent of SASE, but never something as big as this. So I'm really excited and I hope I get the role. But as a leader, as the leader of the SASE board, of course we're going to be seeing each other 5, 6, 7 days a week and working and hanging out together for more than a year. And of course we're going to get to know each other, we're going to be there for each other, it's going to be a supportive group. But I want us to be close and depending on each other, but not being afraid to speak up against each other. So preventing groupthink would be quite important there. That way we have a diverse view and we are able to look at problems without just all agreeing with each other. Because we'll all have our own different external friends, and if we take all their opinions together into our meetings and basically running SASE, we can have a truly diverse SASE.
Okay, cool. Let's see who's next in turn. It's Magda.
Yeah, so I once again agree with everything that has been said before, and also expanding a little bit on the whole thing of trust and making everyone feel important. Because although I kind of hate the word leader in a sense, because it almost makes it seem like that person is supposed to be in control, which I think control is a word that I want to stay away from. And it's about maybe providing a bit of direction, but also understanding that the people in the positions are there for a reason. They know what they're doing, they know what they're supposed to be doing, and I'm supposed, or whoever here is elected, is supposed to support these people and not sit on top of them. And something that I think is really important to focus on too, considering that we'll spend so much time together, is the little things. So I know in my current board right now, what we always do during every single meeting we have is we do a little weekly check-in. So we go around, let everyone say what they've been up to during the week and also how they're feeling. Because I think that that's a really simple, easy way to make everyone feel included and make everyone feel heard. Because at the end of the day, I think that that's the most important for providing a good team spirit.
Okay, thank you. Lilja?
I wanted, Vilma, first of all, the thing about communication, to me that's the most important thing. From different leadership experiences, I've realized that the main cause of conflicts has been because of misunderstandings that arise, and if we have, it's because we're not clearly communicating. That's why we have misunderstandings. And I just think that people should speak up, as Ved said. If they have an issue, then they should talk about it, reasonably, of course. And yeah, to me, I think communication is key, and that's how a board functions properly.
Okay, thank you. Vilma, have you had your time answering? No, that's good, thank you.
Don't you remember my great answer?
I was occupied going through these extra questions here. Let's see. Yes. So this question reads, how will you practically work on inclusivity on an operational level? So I guess this could imply perhaps incorporating or being more inclusive towards international students, which we have already touched upon, or any other type of inclusivity. I mean, it doesn't have to be towards or regarding a certain group of people. Would anyone want to answer that?
I can start since I have the mic. I can just take up one point here. Inclusivity when it comes to international students. I think that a lot of the international students have started new initiatives. I mean, if you look at INTO, there are a lot of new regional societies that have been starting up, but I think that not all of the societies have been receiving equal opportunities when it comes to like budget for them to expand and for them to be able to receive some more recognition. I think that is one thing that we can probably work on.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, I also feel like first impressions are key in almost all situations. And I think that the introduction weeks that we have, when all the småttingar come to our school for the first time, this is like where we set what kind of culture we want to have within the association for this year. And just simple things like making sure that, for example, everybody's always talking to all the new småttingar. We have like the maybe more initiatives between different småtting groups and parents, getting more of the older students involved and so on. I think that this really sets the culture of being inclusive from the beginning, which means that the culture throughout the rest of the 3 years that the småttingar are at the school will improve as well.
Okay, thank you. Magda?
Yeah, and one thing that I find really important as well is that I don't want anyone to feel like they're restricted to one committee. Like I know right now maybe a lot of international students feel like, oh, but we have INTO. It's for internationals. But I don't ever want it to be the way that international students, for instance, feel like they only belong there. I want to make sure that everyone feels like they're welcome into every project, into every committee. And I think that that's work that we have to do in a committee-based level as well. So not only up in the SASE board and the daily operational work, but we have to bring that down to make sure that the recruitment processes and the projects are adapted to fit a wider range of people. It shouldn't be that the same amount of, or the same number of people are there in all of the positions. It should be, as we've said before, that they're spread out and that there's new individuals for different positions and that everyone feels welcome.
Okay, great. Let's see if we have any other additional questions here. Yeah, I guess this builds upon this question, which reads: currently we have currently we solely have 3 international board member of committees across SASE committees. Many people don't stand a chance as an international student on a board member scale. How will you change this lack of inclusivity? So if there's anything to add, I guess it's...
Okay. No, I think already that we're seeing changes in this. Of course, it's a problem that's ongoing and it probably takes time to adapt a little bit. But for instance, we know now that in the international committee, unless the protest vote wins, which I don't think it will, we will have an international SASE board member, which I find very exciting. So I think already that we're seeing change in this, but I also think that it is important, as we've said before, that during fall recruitments and everything like that, international students don't feel like they're not invited. Like I don't want it to be in the way that they feel like they kind of shy away from it, because that's in the end what also makes you, in like most board members, for instance, have been part of projects before, and a lot of the board work is about the community and the little group. And I think that we need to open our eyes and understand that a good inclusive group doesn't have to be a Swedish-speaking group. That has no relation in it whatsoever. And I think that that's something that we maybe need to look into a bit and understand that it's not important in that way. International students are just as welcome as anyone else.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I'd like to steal a quote from the latest episode of the SSC Unfiltered web series I watched this morning. Diversity is being invited to the party, inclusivity is being asked to dance, and equity is being part of the party planning committee. So I'm going to go ahead and declare this the most international SACE election ever, mostly because it's usually bachelor students that run for these positions, which is a problem we've touched upon. But because us, class of 2023, I hope I got that correct, we are the first English bachelor batch for the BNE program. So yeah, international students were coming, we're here, we're going to integrate into the society. But yes, no one should feel discriminated against, or like their lack of Swedish-speaking ability should harm their chances at any SACE position, board, project, or council.
Okay, thank you, Ved. Anyone want to elaborate? No, it's.
I didn't.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Do you have any more questions than that? Perhaps one? No. Okay. All right then. I guess that concludes this evening debate. Thank you so much for attending, and thank you to the viewers. Yeah. Good evening.